90-Day Fiancé, who is Shekinah Garner's ex-husband and her daughter Sofie's dad? Sofie's opinion on Sarper Güven matters a lot to Shekinah. 90-Day Fiancé star Shekinah Garner's daughter Sofie's introduction in Season 11 has fans wondering who Shekinah's ex-husband and Sofie's father is. Shekinah, from Los Angeles, managed to get Sarper Güven from Turkey to the US on a K-1 visa to marry him. Shekinah and Sarper's love story began on a dating app during her trip to Istanbul and blossomed over 2 seasons of 90-Day Fiancé, the other way. However, Sarper wasn't quite liked by the audiences because of his controlling nature and anger issues. Shekinah had moved to Turkey but kept going back to the US every few weeks to see her daughter Sofie, who went to boarding school. Shekinah couldn't really relocate to a new country entirely, so Sarper agreeing to come to America must have been a boon for the mother. Sarper was now tasked with getting Sofie to approve the marriage. Shekinah warned Sarper that if Sofie didn't like him, she couldn't marry someone her daughter didn't like. Shekinah was never married before meeting Sarper. Sofie's father is Shekinah's ex-boyfriend, Berto Matta. Sarper is Shekinah's first legal husband. She was never married to the man she introduced in 90-Day Fiancé, the other way as the dad to her only daughter. Shekinah and Berto met when she was just 23 years old. Shekinah remained with Berto for 4 years. However, he did regret not being in the US for 9 years and leaving Shekinah to raise the child by herself. Berto was in Costa Rica, where he was growing up. He owns a hotel there, and Berto's absence from their lives was a reason why his relationship with Shekinah had failed. Did Sarper meet Shekinah's daughter Sofie? What did Sofie think of Sarper? Shekinah and Berto have continued co-parenting Sofie. However, with Sarper coming to the US to marry Shekinah, Sofie had a new stepdad. Moreover, Sofie, who had never met Sarper before, had already formed an opinion about him based on Shekinah's sister Sharia's interaction with Sarper. Sofie agreed to meet Sarper on 90-Day Fiancé Season 11 Episode 9, and Sarper only had one chance to make a first impression. "I'm a father figure," Sarper had said with confidence before meeting Sofie. Sarper had booked a whale-watching trip for them to take the pressure off the first meeting. "I feel like I'd already seen him before because of all the pictures and like I already knew how he talked, but I also feel like I want to get to know him more as a person as well." However, Sofie had already decided that she wanted to see Sarper treat her mom with respect, as she knew that the way Sarper worded things affected his communication skills. The trip turned out to be a disaster since Sarper took Shekinah and Sofie to the outside of the deck to look for whales. They got splashed by a huge wave and were cold after that, with Sarper getting seasick and embarrassed by how weak he looked before Shekinah's daughter. In the end, Sarper apologized to Sofie for the terrible trip. Sarper explained to Sofie that he was a totally different man when he met Shekinah and Sharia. Sofie agreed and wished to get a fresh start so Sarper could prove himself to the family and create a better impression on everyone. Hearing Sarper take responsibility opened Sofie's eyes to how he had changed and could change in the future. She hoped he wasn't telling her what she wanted to hear and that he was being sincere and genuine. Does Shekinah have any other kids? Will Shekinah have a baby with after they marry? Sofie is Shekinah's only child. The other way, Sarper Güven revealed he has a secret son he has never met. He stated that the child, who is now around 25 years old, was born when Sarper was a teenager. Sarper wished to have more children, but Shekinah had spent her 20s raising a baby and didn't want any more children. However, in October 2023, when a 90-Day Fiancé fan asked the couple if they wanted a wedding and children in the future, Sarper replied, "The main thing is putting a signature to heart emoji," and avoided the baby topic. 90-Day Fiancé's Sarper and Shekinah made sound like relationship gorilla glue. 90-Day Fiancé's Sarper and Shekinah's relationship is hanging by a single thread, and that thread is. But is it enough to get them to the altar? When it comes to 90-Day Fiancé, drama is never ending, but Sarper and Shekinah might just be taking the cake this season. From heated fights to steamy reconciliations, their relationship is a roller coaster held together by one thing, and one thing only, and that thing is sex. Yes, the glue holding their love story together isn't love, communication, or trust, but it's full-blown, no-holds-barred physical chemistry. In the May 11th episode, the couple showed that while they might struggle with emotional conversations and trust building, they have absolutely no trouble hitting the reset button in the bedroom. So, is passion enough to keep this duo from burning out? Fans are starting to wonder if love needs a little more than lust to last. This is the only thing keeping 90 Day Fiancé's Sarper and Shekinah together. If there's one thing 90 Day Fiancé fans have learned about Sarper and Shekinah, it's that their relationship might be emotionally chaotic, but their physical chemistry is Olympic-level strong. After a major blowout that had Sarper dramatically threatening to leave Shekinah and the country, the couple hit a cold, silent standoff for 3 full days, but instead of hashing things out with a mature conversation, Sarper had other plans. Late one night, fueled by what he described as his animal instinct, he crept upstairs and rekindled things the only way he knows how, through sex. By morning, the tension had melted, temporarily, and both parties were back to smiling and flirting like nothing ever happened. Sarper seems to believe that their physical connection is like a reset button, capable of fixing just about anything. And surprisingly, Shekinah agreed, admitting that sex is what keeps them glued together when everything else falls apart. She said, via people, however, while this steamy strategy might smooth things over short term, it doesn't erase the issues underneath. Sure, it might be enough for now, but it is not for the future. Still, give it to Sarper, he knows what works in the moment, even if it's not the long-term solution Shekinah's looking for. Is enough to lead them down the aisle? As hot as things get between Sarper and Shekinah, their relationship isn't just spicy date nights and flirty stares. Beneath all that fire is a messy pile of trust issues and serious communication problems. There is no doubt that Sarper's romantic gestures and smooth-talking charm can sweep Shekinah off her feet, but that is not enough for forever. For Sarper, a little passion seems to be the cure for everything. For Shekinah, it's just a temporary band-aid. She's made it clear that only hot sex alone doesn't make a solid marriage. She wants more than promises, she wants action, real effort, and emotional maturity. Shekinah said, "We have things we need to work on, communication, we need trust. Just because we had sex doesn't mean everything's forgiven and everything's okay." Turns out, Sarper's been feeling stuck. Literally. He can't work in the US until they're married, and the stress of being jobless and far from home has taken a toll. "I feel trapped, that makes me concerned, that makes me anxious and depressed. My failure, my mistake, is to not to come to you and tell you that. Maybe if I told you instead of being in a bad mood, on my own, you can be more understanding of me." So yes, the spark is still there. If Sarper doesn't start showing up outside the bedroom with the same energy he brings inside it, Shekinah might just decide that sex isn't enough to carry them down the aisle. 90 Day Fiancé. I'm convinced Shekinah Garner and her family will get their own spin-off. Something's been missing in the franchise since the Family Chantel ended. Something has been missing in the 90 Day Fiancé franchise since the Family Chantel spin-off ended, and I think alum Shekinah Garner and her family will fill that void. The Family Chantel starred 90 Day Fiancé Season 4 couple, Chantel Everett and Pedro Jimeno, who were so popular during their run on the OG show and Happily Ever After spin-off that they got their own show. However, after 5 seasons and Chantel and Pedro's split, the spin-off ended, leaving the franchise without a nuclear 90DF family to focus on. In comes Shekinah and her family, in my opinion. 43-year-old Shekinah is the oldest of 6 daughters, and she and her sisters were raised Amish. Shekinah has been going through her 90 Day Fiancé journey with 44-year-old Turkish native, Sarper Güven. They have made for quite an interesting and entertaining pair, as their relationship has been put to the test several times over, and they are both telegenic and reality TV-worthy people individually and together. Moreover, when Shekinah's family was introduced in 90 Day Fiancé Season 11, I felt that something was brewing behind the scenes for future purposes. Shekinah has already had a long run in the 90 Day Fiancé franchise. Getting a spin-off wouldn't be a stretch. 90 Day Fiancé fans were first introduced to Shekinah and Sarper in The Other Way Season 5, when Shekinah decided to move to Turkey to pursue a relationship with Sarper. They had met when Shekinah was visiting Turkey, and the pair met on a dating website. Sarper, who proclaims to have slept with over 2,500 women, thought Shekinah was going to be another fling, but then he fell for her. The duo were long distance for 1 year before her move to Turkey. Once there, Shekinah, who had to travel back to the US every 5 weeks to visit her daughter in boarding school in California, found communication difficult with Sarper. While she loved being controlled, she often felt like Sarper didn't understand her needs. The pair came back for a second season in 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way Season 6, and Sarper showcased more of his problematic nature. He was incited by Shekinah's sister Sharia's questions about his motives and treatment of Shekinah and used offensive language towards her. Shekinah and Sarper also got into an ugly off-camera fight where Sarper pulled out Shekinah's hair extension, although they made up and called it a misunderstanding. With their rocky foundation laid, Shekinah and Sarper applied for the K-1 visa, and Sarper was approved. He arrived in America in 90 Day Fiancé Season 11, and he has tried to turn over a new leaf. Sarper has toned down his aggression, endeavored to be more sensitive, and is on a mission to get Shekinah's family to like him. I think since Shekinah and Sarper have become a staple of the 90 Day Fiancé franchise in recent years across spin-offs, it's not a stretch to think they have enough going on between them to merit a spin-off. When they are not fighting, they are talking about sex life, and when they're doing neither, they still have comedic relief and dynamic situations arising. Sarper is also still in America, signifying that they got married. What's more, in Season 11, more members of Shekinah's family were introduced, and I smell a spin-off because of it. Shekinah's family seems interesting. They are telegenic. Shekinah's daughter Sofie let Sarper know after she met him for the first time that he had to get in good with her family in order for her to fully accept her mom marrying him. Enter Shekinah's sisters. 90 Day Fiancé's Shekinah and Sarper traveled to Whitefish, Montana, so Sarper could meet Shekinah's sisters, Ziona, Mariah, Sharia, and Sharia's boyfriend, and make a good impression on them. However, Sarper put his foot in his mouth a couple of times, and caused concern among Shekinah's family. Shekinah's family left Sarper on edge with the prompt that his actions had to speak louder than his words. Outside of the entertaining and potentially dramatic pressure Shekinah's sisters put on Sarper, I think they are very telegenic and well-spoken. My favor of them was also helped by each of Shekinah's sisters' trendy individual styles and Ice Queen attitudes that make me want to see more of them. Shekinah and Sarper have a messy and entertaining relationship. They always have serious fights. Upon returning from Whitefish, Shekinah and Sarper got into a huge off-camera fight, much like the one in Turkey. Sarper felt trapped and depressed and under Shekinah's thumb, and Shekinah thought the old Sarper was coming back and that he didn't understand he was taking his words too far. 90 Day Fiancé's Sarper sounded fed up. F***K this lie, okay? F***K everything. The next conversation that I will do with her has to be, we are okay, or it's over. I think Shekinah and Sarper's constant triumphs and setbacks make them interesting to watch. I want to root for them to succeed, but I also think they aren't capable of finding true happiness with one another because of their differences. Within that wayward setup, and their willingness to keep trying, Shekinah and Sarper's journey would be fun to continue following. I also think they have enough drama and changing dynamics between the two of them to warrant more airtime in their own spin-off. The 90 Day Fiancé has been missing a hit spin-off since The Family Chantel. The new 90 Day Fiancé spin-offs aren't cutting it. The Family Chantel was very popular because of Chantel and Pedro's relationship pitfalls and because of how bad each of them was in with the other's family. That said, the same setup is happening between Shekinah and Sarper. Shekinah has a lot to prove to Sarper's family in Turkey, and what Sarper needs to do for Shekinah's family has already been spelled out. I think the current 90 Day Fiancé spin-offs that were meant to replace The Family Chantel, like 90 Day The Last Resort and the upcoming 90-day Hunt for Love are not going to cut it in terms of viewership and engaging content, but I think a spin-off with Shekinah, Sarper, and both of their families would. I strongly believe another family-based spin-off would perform well in the franchise, and it seems to me that Shekinah and Sarper are setting the foundation to make that a reality, although nothing is official.